Why choose Kelly Chevrolet? We offer a wide selection of new and used inventory with a team that guides you to your perfect fit. Our certified pre-owned options ensure peace of mind with warranties and rigorous inspections. Competitive pricing, flexible financing, and convenient trade and services, making your dream Chevrolet a reality. Trust our experienced service team to keep your vehicle in top shape and enjoy free car washes as long as you own your vehicle.
And welcome everybody to Around the Fort remote style. Here we are, week 8 of the high school football season. I am Casey O'Boyle, joined by my co-host Jeff Mahoney. Jeff, welcome.
Hey, Casey. Big weekend this weekend. St. Francis is back at home after suffering a 58-36 loss at Taylor. So Cougs ready to turn it back around. They're going to take on Lawrence Tech this Saturday, 1 p.m. at Bishop Darcy Stadium. So a lot of Fort Wayne guys getting in there. You know, Ben Rectanis had a sack the last home game in a big 70-7 win against Madonna. So it's always fun to see the local guys contributing for the Cougars.
Yeah, especially those recognizable names that come and go in the Fort Wayne circles, like Rectanis.
Yeah.
And good for him and the rest of those guys. I know Bodie Dickerson had a nice game a couple weeks back as a receiver or tight end, and it's always neat to see these guys participate at the next level, at any level, and have some success. And it's something about any more NAIA scores, especially, but in particular, St. Francis. Those scores are just. It reminds me of the Fort Wayne Freedom Days, the Arena League. I mean, they're just outrageous, the scores from week to week.
And Coach D's been doing that throughout his career. I mean, for him, for one of his offenses to put up 70 points, it seems like it happens at least once a season.
Yeah, and they generally average in the 40s, mid to high 40s sometimes. And I think some of our local offenses in the high school realm could maybe go over to the campus there at St. Francis and get some instruction from Coach D and the guys, because we are definitely offensively challenged, I believe, in Northeast Indiana this year, and we probably can talk a little bit about that tonight. And some of that certainly is, I think, great defense, but there are a handful of teams that are really struggling offensively, and if they're going to make a run in the postseason, they're going to have to fix things really quickly here.
Definitely.
Well, let's jump into it. We're going to be joined at some point by Jake the Snake Smith. He's again floating around in a cornfield somewhere. I hope he's driving 10-2 and he's paying attention to the road and not trying to sync up, but he did say he'll join us as soon as possible. And this is one of his boys right there, Stratton Fuller, on his way to Army, as well as Leo Senior Landon Hepner. And kind of a fun cover that Taylor Houndstein designed for game night this week. It's kind of got the whole camo theme going on there, and Army Strong. You know, both these guys are going to West Point to play football for the Army. What are they? The Black Knights? Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's pretty neat. 2 local kids that are going to go head to head tomorrow night, literally head to head tomorrow night on both sides of the ball, and then they're going to journey out to the East Coast and represent our country and play for Army someday. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, and Ryan Dellinger's son, Simon Dellinger, just graduated from the academy. He had a great career at Army, moved from tackle or from tight end to tackle, and did a great job. He just loved his experience there. And if I remember correctly, I think he's a helicopter pilot.
Well, that's pretty cool.
It is
cool.
cool.
It's a great opportunity. I don't know if I mentioned this before on the show, but I had an opportunity to go to Annapolis for the Naval Academy, and my junior and senior year of high school. Excuse me, Jeff. And long story short, chose the IU route and wanted to pursue a journalism or telecommunications in sports degree, and I think it worked out. But certainly Congressman Coates at the time is the one that wrote my letter recommendation, and I was definitely very, very honored to receive that nomination to the U.S. Naval Academy. I don't know if I was Navy material, truth be told, and maybe I made the right choice after all, but I do know it was a wonderful opportunity. And if you go that route and you come out as an officer, you're generally speaking set for life unless you do something really, really stupid. So these guys should both be in good hands.
Most definitely. And Casey, I will definitely say it was a huge benefit for the Fort Wayne community having you back here doing your journalism.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun, and we wouldn't be able to do some of this, certainly from a game night perspective. So player of the week this week, several good candidates, but we kind of settled on Jimmy Sullivan. Bubba's just, quietly, it's kind of funny to say quietly, but they've won, 5 straight games and really playing some pretty good football are the Carroll Chargers. He put up great numbers a week ago, over 300 yards passing, a couple short TD runs. And that game, remember, was 10-10, Carroll and Homestead, 2 rivals, his former team, so it carries extra emotion there. And he kind of just helped blow the top off that one as the Chargers won 31-10, and he performed at a really, really high level. So I thought he was definitely very deserving.
Yeah, definitely. And man, he has really carried a heavy load over there at Carroll. And, you never hear him complain or anything like that, but that's a huge win for the Chargers, and they'll have Wayne to finish off the season. Not Wayne, excuse me, but oh geez, I'll have to look it up. But I mean, they are primed for another conference championship. When they first joined the SAC in, what was it, Casey, 2015?
Yes.
Number of years there, they missed out on conference titles, but the last 3-4 years, it's been Carroll or bust. They've done a great job kind of taking hold of the SAC.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They've got Northrop this week at home, and then they go to Northside and face the Legends. And Northside is a really dangerous team, I think, right now. That defense is playing at a super high level, and that's no gimme for the Chargers. But they'll definitely be favored in both those contests.
Yeah, most definitely. And, talking about Northside, I know we'll get back into them, but they're one of those teams that are starting to get guys healthy. So, when guys are injured, new guys step up, and sometimes those new guys claim that position that they're taking over for, but it just adds to the depth, and it's a good sign heading into the postseason.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The famous Wally Pipp reference from Major League Baseball days back in the day. If it, Lou Gehrig, of course, took his spot, and the rest is history. Never left the lineup. And Northside has an abundance of riches out there, especially in some of those younger classes. And like you said, Jeff, there's guys that we don't know a ton about. You might know them more than some, but certainly the area is going to find out a lot about them as they get more PT on the varsity landscape.
Yeah, and as you say that, I first name that pops in my mind is DeMarcus Landers, who's a sophomore. He took over for Jay-Sean early when Jay-Sean got hurt. But now DeMarcus is second on the team with 40 tackles, so definitely making the most of his time.
Yeah, and that's how you got to do it, is these young guys, because you just never know with injuries and other guys vying for playing time. You got to make the most of your minutes, and DeMarcus has done a really good job of that. So why don't we jump in, and maybe while we're waiting on Jake, we'll take a peek at page 2 and maybe the center spread, the game night gallery. We try to do at least one of these every year in game night where we kind of, I don't know, it's just a nice opportunity for me as the editor of game night to thank a lot of the photographers that donate so much of their time and talent to the game night mission. And so we got, I think there's 12 pictures on page 2 that my designer was able to wedge in there. Some really great shots. I don't know if there's any in there, Jeff. The screen's awful small for me, but I liked all of them. And these are ones that I handpicked, and then I sent a lot of them to my designer and let her kind of put the layout together. But maybe we could start here on page 2. I love the picture of Sherwood because he's such a, to me, he's just he's so much a part of Northeast Indiana football as long as he's been here at 3 different schools and all the success that he's had.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but Sherwood now his 37th year coaching. So, I mean, that even dwarfs guys like Chad Zalman and Kurt Tittman, Doug Dinan, some of the guys that you feel like, oh, they've been here forever. Well, Sherwood certainly has, and he does a great job over there at Wayne. He was at Woodland before and Harding before that, and he just hated having to leave Harding. And I know it was heartwarming for him to get back over there to Wayne and in that community that he had so much success in when he was at Harding.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he's leaving anytime soon. Every time I talk to him, I think they're going to have to drag him off the sideline. He just loves coaching high school football, and he's really, really good at it. And he's got a special team this year that's doing some great things. And again, we'll talk about them in a little bit here because they've got an intriguing matchup this week against Northside. But a couple other picks there. I like that bottom left one. Amy Kretzinger, she takes a lot of picks for Cherubusco. That shot there of that girl, the expression on that cheerleader's face is priceless. Read what her shirt says. Can you read it, Jeff?
No, I can't. I don't know if it says humble. It says don't.
I don't fumble is what it says. And all the girls apparently for that particular, it must have been homecoming or something, all had, I think, football related sayings, if you will.
Yeah.
And hers said, I don't fumble. And the look on her face is priceless.
No, that's great. And I'm sure the Flyers on the cheerleading squad there appreciate that she doesn't fumble them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, it was just a fun picture, and some of the ones above for sure are nice. I like that top right picture of Daria Williams. That was week 1 against Leo. I've been sitting on that photo all year long, waiting for an opportunity, and just didn't have one. And I thought, all right, we'll put this in the gallery. I think the top left picture there of Houston Ellinger, that was, I believe, after a strip fumble against Northrop on a really big offensive play for the Bruins, where somebody from Bishop Dwenger, it may have been Houston, I think it might have been a teammate, stripped the ball from the Northrop receiver, and Houston scooped it up and went the other way. And it was, literally about a 50, 60 yard exchange in field position, and the Saints took the ball. And that was, of course, the gold uniforms on the blue pants, which I thought was fun. And last week they wore blue on blue. I don't know if you noticed that or not, Jeff.
I did notice that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, just some fun picks there. Of course, Seth Pruitt, we'd be remiss if that's another one from Steve Bowen that I've been sitting on all year that I didn't really get a chance to use up against Angola early in the season. So,
but that photo right there just it describes his whole career, just leaving a pile of defenders behind him. You know what I mean?
Yes, in his wake, and he's a little off balance, but darn well he didn't go to the turf there. He maintained his balance and kept running because that's who he is.
I love Krell right here. Logan Hatton hoisting him up in the air there. They did that 2 more times this past Friday. So That's a good one as well.
Yeah. And Dylan, after he scores, likes to do this. That's kind of one of his signature post touchdown celebration poses, if you will. It's really cool. And so no, there's some great art there. And then maybe we could skip real quick to the center spread, Jeff, and then we'll backtrack.
Coach O'Shea looking pretty good there as well.
Yeah, Ryan O'Shea, another game night favorite for sure. And I love their colors and their helmet out at Lakeland. I've got 2 of those beauties, as you know, down in the cave. And then the Homestead picture there of the kids is a great picture too. I wish that, if folks check this out on your website, Jeff, they need to, blow that up, because the expression on the faces of those little people running out is just priceless. And Leslie Palmer submitted that, and I thought that was a really great picture.
And what's amazing, now that they have the new facility built behind there, is their field house. But Coach Zollman's office is also on that wall, so he can just peek his head into the window and see what's going on out on his field.
Yeah, make sure somebody's not desecrating that turf or something. He's got an eyeball on it, I'm sure. And then the Fort Wayne Fire Department team of the week is Snyder Panthers. They're at home this week against Bishop Dwenger. So we'll talk a little bit more about them, but kind of a fun pick, a relatively small senior class by Snyder standards. And we talked about Bishop Dwenger having a small senior class this year and a few other schools. Snyder certainly was one of them. I mean, Snyder typically has about twice that many seniors that come to our photo shoot.
Yeah, and I think it was 28 straight wins now over Northrop.
Yes, it is 28 straight, and that's remarkable.
Yeah.
Again, and not to poke fun or anything. To me, that's not a rivalry anymore. maybe it was in the 70s and 80s, but it's just not anymore. And I think when Snyder has their own stadium here in a few years, Jeff, then they need to throw that whole discussion out, in my opinion. The only thing that keeps it a rivalry in today's day and age is the fact that they share Spiller Stadium on the campus of Northrop High School. That's my opinion.
Yeah, their big rivalries coming up this Friday.
Yes, I would agree. And as much as the Battle of the Bishops is very, very special for both Luers and Bishop Dwenger, make no mistake, I'd be willing to bet most Saints fans, most Saints players and former players would say as much that Snyder is their biggest rival.
Yeah, for sure. And Luers, they don't think too much about the regular season anyways. I mean, they're postseason minded with their 14 state championships.
Yeah, that's certainly part of their focus. And truthfully, they've got some Southside natural neighborhood rivalries like Southside, right? And then, of course, which is this week, and then even Wayne. And they played the Generals earlier this year. Both those schools, I think, anymore are as, tenacious and vibrant in terms of that Friday night experience as Bishop Dwenger is on the Luers schedule.
Yeah, and I believe that Southside's going to make it very hard for Bishop Luers to run the ball this Friday. I think they're going to key in on Dario Williams. I know we'll get more into that, but Andre Goodwell going from Luers over to Southside and really starting to build something there, it just adds more to their little rivalry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The Calhoun Street Brawl, they call it, for sure. All right, and then the play of the week, the sparkling player of the week. Again, there's the all blue on blue.
I like it.
Pretty cool. I do too. I mean, there's part of me that's very much a traditionalist and a purist, and but in this day and age, I think you got to dress up your uniforms, and as long as you have it in your budget, I think you should do it. Numbers, decals on the helmets. I think the Navy on Navy was really cool. But at any rate, that play there, that whole game, it was 6-0 before that safety, Jeff. And I'll be honest with you, it felt watching that game, if you're watching it from a Dwenger perspective, which I was, having a son on the team, it felt like Luers is going to steal this game because Dwenger could not punch it in. They could not put the Knights away. And Luers just kind of kept hanging around. And you just were waiting for that sack and strip and scoop and score, or a pick six or a punt return or something from the Knights. And they were going to steal it. It just felt that way. This safety made it 8-0 in the fourth quarter. And even though it didn't guarantee a win, at the very least, it probably guaranteed, as late in the game as it was, an overtime situation. And so I think the Dwenger faithful took a deep breath and exhaled like, whew, all right, this helps. Tommy Pori, number 90, the defensive end there, senior, was the first in there to make contact on Dario Williams. And then Casey Piper, number 15, kind of helped clean them up. And man, they were in there quick. And if it wasn't for that play, who knows? Luers might, move the ball out to midfield, get another opportunity or two, and might have stolen that game last week out at Shields Field.
They definitely have the home run threats to do that. And I think it's very fitting in a year with Bishop Dwenger that we've been talking about the defense, the majority of the time, that 2 field goals from one of the best place kickers in Northeast Indiana and then the safety to seal it is how they beat their rival. So seems fitting and for this season, and a great win for them for sure.
Yeah. And I didn't get a chance to delve all the way back into the early years of this rivalry, but I'd be willing to bet, and this isn't a stretch, this is the first time that in this series that neither team scored a touchdown. Think of that.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there could be a 0-0 way back in the beginning that I'm not aware of, or a 3-0 perhaps, but I'd be willing to bet this is the first time. And again, to your point, the special teams, I think Dwenger fans know they've got a special kicker in Lucas Wynn, and he's a weapon. With that defense, he's a weapon. Touchbacks and field goals. And sometimes, watching that game, they had another opportunity or two perhaps to take another 3-pointer, and that definitely would have put Luers away. 9-zip is 2 scores, right? And so he's a weapon, and the Saints were just a little bit better on special teams, and that was the difference.
And I couldn't agree with you more with what you said in your intro about, you feel like this has been a defensive heavy season, and I would agree with that. And, the more I've been watching teams, I feel like one of the most explosive offenses out there in Northeast Indiana is the East Noble Knights.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it's the complementary passing game
Yes.
of Riley Biddle that really has taken them to another level.
Next level. Yep.
And Jake has been talking a lot about him, how that kid spins the ball and how he might be the difference maker on that side of the ball for sure. And when you got a kid like Dylan Creel, who just has got such great footwork in the hole, vision and balance and power, deceptive speed, all the parts there. They don't have necessarily burners in their receiving core, but they got 3 or 4 pretty good targets out there. And certainly the threat that Riley Biddle poses passing the ball, I agree with you, Jeff, gives them a new dimension. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see going into the sectional, if that bears itself out. But again, you'd have to think, a defense like Bishop Dwingers would certainly give them fits.
Yeah, and those two guys in the same sectional is very, very interesting.
Yep. Well, let's skip over Leo Columbia City, and in case Jake does jump on here, we can come back to this game, Jeff, if that's okay with you. And why don't you and I tackle Dwenger at Snyder, since we've been talking a little bit about the Saints already here. I'll go ahead and start, and then feel free to ask, any questions or chime in accordingly. But having, again, seen Dwenger a lot this year, the offense, a couple weeks ago against Northrop in that really bad weather, it looked like they were close to maybe turning the corner. But last week, again, credit Lure's defense. But the Saints, you couldn't really pass the ball. Their Henry Jordan, their junior quarterback, was injured, and Nick O'Keefe, the sophomore, came on in relief. And truthfully, right now, the way this offense is set up, Jeff, that could be a blessing in disguise for the Dwenger O, because Nick O'Keefe is, I think, a better runner and better in terms of improvising than Henry Jordan is. And the passing game just isn't really there yet, and the running game isn't much further ahead. So maybe having a kid like Nick O'Keefe scrambling around, or perhaps they've talked about putting in some quarterback draws and things of that nature, rolling him out away from the pressure with some RPOs. That could be a blessing in disguise for this Dwenger offense, because they're going to need to move the ball a little bit more, obviously, against Snyder. And I expect Snyder's defense to load up the box. They have single eye safety, with Brandon Logan playing center field. You don't need 2 deep safeties when you got Brandon Logan. And so they're going to have an extra guy or 2 in the box, and they're going to force Dwenger, I think, to beat him through the air.
Wow, which would be tough to do against that defensive backfield for sure. And it's not going to get any easier to run the ball against them at all. One of the guys for Snyder that's really been jumping off the screen at me is number 21, AZL Jordan. I feel like from week 1 to where we are now in week 8, he's made some of the biggest improvements. Not to say that he's the best defender for the Panthers, but I feel like where he was in week 1 to where he is now, he's one of those difference makers. And coach said he goes 6'3", 210. So to have him opposite of Adam Blakey is pretty devastating for that defense. Now with Dwenger, and I'm sure that you could probably attest to this, but I'm hearing they're getting healthier on the offensive line, and that they've actually created some depth on the offensive line. And the way that coach has been moving some of his better defenders into the offensive backfield, I think that's something that could continue for them, so they can have a kind of a jumbo type package back there to really wear teams down. I don't know that you beat Snyder through the pass in this game, but I think that they can hang with their defense, number one, definitely with their defense. And then if they can sustain some drives, get a couple penalties, things that just eat up the clock. And I don't know, Ellinger in the backfield, we saw it with Hayden, a few years back. Pelkington's been back there a little bit. Just get some big guys back there to maul you. Because, Casey, when you think about it and think about this game, these are probably the 2 hardest hitting teams in the SAC year in, year out.
No doubt about it. Traditionally, they are, and I think this year they are as well. They're very physical. There's a good shot there of Paul Baumgartner, the senior,
Yeah.
This is a kid that wasn't starting at the beginning of the year, but got his opportunity, has made a lot of plays. He's really had some productive games this year. I believe he's got 2 interceptions as well. Another good shot of Ryan Groves, St. Charles product. And remember, St. Charles, as you know, Jeff, is right in the backyard of Snyder High. This game means a lot to those kids. And there's a lot of St. Charles kids on this team, especially in that senior class. And Ryan was coming off an injury and surgery in the offseason, and he had a hard time just getting on the field for a while.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a forgotten soldier, so to speak. In the last couple of weeks, he's really stepped in. I think he's filled in some at linebacker. He can literally play about all 3 levels on defense if they needed him to. But he was all over the field last week, and this is a kid that's going to be really, really hungry against, Snyder, because this is like a neighborhood game for all those St. Charles kids.
Yeah, and Paul Baumgartner, when I was talking earlier about guys getting hurt and other guys stepping in, I mean, this is a utility weapon for head coach Jason Garrett. He's number 6 on the team in tackles. And like Casey said, he didn't even start the season off as a starter, but could play safety, could play corner. He can mask. He can fill a lot of holes for you if your team's down. And, his favorite movie is Interstellar, so that he's got kind of a cerebral type appearance.
Yeah. Well, and Paul, I think it was week 2 against Moeller, had the Laser X Big Tag of the Week, where Dwenger really competed in that game and proved much more worthy of an opponent compared to their week 1 loss at Brownsburg. And yes, Moeller pulled away late, but Paul had a big hit in that game, and it was neat to see. And then, of course, stretching down here on Snyder, nice picture there from Doug Blackwell. Mr. Jordan running. Aaron Ganaway is a big 6'3.5" receiver that I think could be utilized more in the red zone, some jump ball opportunities against smaller DBs from Bishop Dwenger. So some great subplots here. Again, no love lost between these two. It's going to be physical. It's going to be emotional. Last year, you'll remember, Jeff, I think they canceled the handshake, I believe.
At the end of the game,
right? Yeah, because there was just so much emotion on both sides.
Yes.
And I think athletic directors got together and said, all right, game over. It was 33-13. It was, Dwenger wasn't going to come back at that point, and I think they both went their separate ways. So I don't expect that necessarily tomorrow night, but I do expect it to be very physical, very emotional, a lot of passion, and the kind of game that really both could use as a springboard into the postseason.
Most definitely. And Jordan Davis, now that Braylon Burton's in the backfield with him, both of their dads played together on the 1992 state championship team.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I feel like with having the 1-2 punch of Davis and Burton, that it's just helping, or it's fueling each kid to get better and better. And the competition in that offensive backfield is awesome for the Panthers.
Yes, and this is an offense still that's finding itself as well. I think Aaron Vance has done a really nice job, the senior quarterback, kind of coming into his own, but they don't have necessarily that passing game prowess that you would expect from a team out at Snyder, and they're relying on those 2 young backs. And this, I believe, could be, with the exception of Warren Central, their toughest test defensively of the season.
Yeah, and one of the things to know is, Vance had 4 touchdown passes, over 300 yards passing in that win against Northrop. He connected with 7 different receivers. And if you think about it, Casey, what a great time to work on what's not the strength of your offense, right? Work on the passing game in a game against Northrop. And we can talk more about it, but you could tell on Friday night, this past Friday, when Columbia City couldn't get it done on the run game, they were asking Grayson to throw the ball, and he does a great job. But against that defense, it's really tough. And you couldn't help but think, well, he only had 1 pass the week before.
Yes.
So how in tune with his receivers was he really on that night?
Yes, and that speaks to coaching and some of the decisions that go into, and in some of those games when you're a big favorite and you've got the game in hand. Yeah, you don't want to run the score up necessarily in the second half by throwing it, but by the same token, maybe there's some balance there, and you have to still work on things for the future. Speaking of Columbia City, why don't we welcome in Jake the Snake Smith, who's again, I think he's got both hands on the wheel now. It looks like he's driving safely. He's very handsome. He always is. Jake, welcome to the program.
Can you hear me?
You're freezing up just a little bit. I think you just froze up, at least on the screen.
Yeah, it was right when you tossed it to him too.
Oh, he fumbled. I just gave him the ball right at the goal line, and he just pissed it right into the end zone. All right, Jake, you might have to pull over and sync back up. We'll keep Columbia City hosting Leo, Jeff, on the back burner, and let's jump to the next game. And we'll just talk briefly about Bluffton at Adams Central. And Jeff, you and I can tackle this one briefly, maybe just a couple minutes since it's outside Allen County. But Bluffton kind of laid an egg last week, undefeated at home, a great opportunity with a big crowd there to beat a good Heritage team, and then perhaps, set up tonight's showdown against Adams Central. And it's still a showdown. They still control their own destiny if they win this game, but they looked human against the Heritage Patriots, who put up 51 points and really did whatever they wanted to do offensively, did the Patriots last week against Bluffton's defense. Bluffton's still a very young team. Adams Central is just, guess what? Going into week 8, they're Adams Central.
Yeah.
That week 1 loss to Garrett, 20-7, sure doesn't look that bad at all.
Nope.
Not that we thought it was bad at the time. I don't think we did, because we were both pretty high on Garrett to start the season, Jeff. But to see now where they've come, they just seem like they're getting better and better and better each week.
Yeah.
Coach Michael Mosier does a great job down there in Monroe, and I'd have to think that the Flying Jets should be a pretty big favorite in this contest.
Yeah, you feel like they got reared up into midseason form in week number 2 with that 43-0 win against Eastside, and since then they've just absolutely dominated everybody, coming off a 55-0 win against Southern Wells. Beating Heritage 33-14 does not bode well for Bluffton, and Bluffton, all of their production is coming from underclassmen, which is great to see if you're a Bluffton Tiger fan. Best, the quarterback's a sophomore. Cooper Craig's a sophomore. Kamel Moore is a junior. Strevler is a junior. So this team, I think, is probably 1 year away from maybe taking this win against Adams Central.
Well, or certainly being competitive. I agree with you. 2 sophomore offensive linemen in there as well. Connor Landis and Zane Betts. And that's a tall task against an Adams Central team that is so well schooled and so physical, and they do things across the board really, really well. So again, I think a tall task for the Tigers, but again, young talent. Sometimes these kids don't know what they don't know, and with a young team, they can go the other direction too. And if they get a lead early or some success on the road, a turnover or two, and they start believing, anything is possible.
Yeah, and Adams Central's quarterback, Jamison Roach, with a touchdown pass this past game, 33 yards. So once again, you don't normally see that from Adams Central. They're usually just rushing the ball down your throat, but nice to see them mixing it up a little bit and the quarterback having success.
Yep, another young QB in that conference to keep an eye on. And then the Stravler kid at the top there was he's, I think, their best target. That's Cooper Craig right there. One more picture up, Jeff. There we go, right there. He's a really good football player that doesn't get, I think, the credit that he deserves because, some of these other guys are stealing the headlines, but he's just outside the leaders board and a really, really good, talented receiver for the Bluffton Tigers.
Yeah, and been doing it since his freshman year for him.
Yes. And then there's a nice shot, again, talking
Beautiful.
Special teams. Jake's not here to appreciate this, but I'm sure he'll check out the rag at some point. I like that picture from Sabrina Innes, who's contributed some pictures from the southern part of our territory. I love pictures like that in game night.
And it looks like that's over at Heritage under the lights. So that's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, I love all the color there and the fans in the background, and for sure Carson Snitz, what a great name. He had a great game last week, and another one of those hard-nosed seniors out there at Adams Central. I think they had 14 seniors, I believe, Jeff, and all of them came to the photo shoot this year, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And 14 seniors is pretty good for a school that size.
Well, that's just it. That's probably around their norm. And we talked about Snyder and Dwinger having small senior classes, relatively speaking, but the Flying Jets, I think are right where they belong. And again, we should have known better than question them after week 1 because they're right back in regular familiar territory. Big jump up to 2A though, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, and Colton wants to own his own business working as a mechanic. So he's got money on his mind. I know the last couple of times I've had to see the mechanic, it cost a pretty penny.
Well, I was going to say, trust me, I'll be hitting him up at some point with all the cars that have been failing me through the years. Colton, do you remember that 2024 issue of Game Night that you were in the Senior Spotlight? I need a discount here.
The Swami discount.
That's right. All right. Anything else with the snake? Let's see here. I'm not seeing anything. I've got other people texting me telling him to get out of his car and and show up to the cave. But let's jump into this next one. Angola at Garrett. Some great artwork on the Angola page. I love their colors and the stripes on the helmet. Fun picture there of Hawk Hasselman. Has to have the best name in the Game Night Nation. Certainly top 5, right, Jeff?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the kind of Los Angeles Laker colors, if you will, but keeping it real traditional with the stripes on the sleeves. I think that's a clean look right there. Doesn't necessarily look like the pants match the top of
I
the
thought
jersey.
that too. I don't know if that's a shadow thing. I thought the same thing. Either that or Hawk wore his practice pants to that game. And he probably got an earful afterwards. I know I've had a kid that's done that a time or two through the years. But if you go down to those other 2 pictures from Steve Bowen, I love those. Look like LSU.
Yes.
With the shoulder stripes and stuff. And those are pretty
Very
cool pics. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm telling you what, sometimes, you might move from a Nike to an Under Armour, and then Under Armour doesn't have the color of pants that you want.
Yep.
I know St. Francis is dealing with that right now where they don't have gray pants.
Yeah, and that could be that situation where they got new jerseys, let's say, and they were counting on the pants from the year before and either changed manufacturers or the manufacturers changed where they got their gear from. It happens all the time.
And along those lines, I do wonder if more and more schools are going to go with that outfit out of Indianapolis, the grind hard. Now, if you have Nike uniforms to outfit, let's say, a team like Northside, I think it's like $30,000.
Wow.
For one set. So with that grind hard, it's like half as much money, and they can get more and more uniforms, and the kids seem to like it. So it'll be interesting.
No, it is cool. And I think it's fun. Again, we talked a little bit earlier about Dwenger, stepping, out of the script a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do that in today's day and age. It's part of the equation. I think it's fun and the kids get excited about it. So I don't have a problem with it. Real quick here, speaking of Hawk Hasselman, Jeff, last week they went down to Owen Valley, which is in the Bloomington area. That's a school that I covered back when I was cutting my teeth in this profession during my IU days in the early 90s and late 80s. And the Owen Valley Patriots, and they play out in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere unless they've built some metropolis around it. It was a cornfield back then, and it was a really cool environment. And they actually had some decent teams when I covered them. Well, this year they're winless and not doing particularly well. Angola, 33-0 after the first quarter. And Hawk Hasselman, at that point, Jeff, had a 36-yard touchdown run, a 9-yard run, an 84-yard punt return for a touchdown, and a 26-yard run for a touchdown. And he did some more things later, and he was 7 for 7, I believe, on PATs. And again, had he played more, he might have been our player of the week. He certainly acquitted himself well statistically, but again, against that kind of competition, it was kind of like, a bit of a coin flip to a certain degree. And then Blackhawks quarterback, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, Coach Bennett's son. Yeah, he's a sophomore, had a monster game, but again, played much more than Hawk did, and the competition certainly wasn't on par with what Jimmy Sullivan had with Homestead. So always tough decisions every week, but I wanted to mention him. He had a great week.
Yeah, and it seems like throughout Coach Andy Thomas's career, they've played those games against Chelsea, Michigan, and now Owen Valley. I mean, I think that's kind of special to have a little road trip game for your team.
Yeah, well, this game actually was played, I believe, at Avon High School, so about halfway in between. Yeah,
not in the cornfield.
Not in the cornfield, but a beautiful facility. And so that was, maybe the concession, because that would have been a heck of a drive So perhaps that was part of the deal. Like, hey, let's find a neutral site, and they found Avon obviously was probably playing on the road, and that's what they decided. So kind of a neat story, and I'm with you. I think those kind of moments are special for kids.
The Avon Orioles, kind of a cool mascot.
The Orioles, yeah, those are like birds that have orange feathers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Eddie Murray, switch hitter. Okay.
Yep. Cal
Taking
Ripken
me back.
Jr.
Yep.
Iron Man.
Iron Man, yeah, taking me back. All right. Anything from the snake? I don't see the snake. I don't think he's texting. I don't know if we lost him. I hope he's okay, but we'll keep plowing ahead. Why don't we take this next one? It was you and I anyways. Well, did you do? Oh yeah. Sorry. Let's talk briefly about Garrett. Love that picture of Cameron Rubel and Parker Skelly giving each other some skin. That's a great picture earlier in this year from Doug Blackwell. And again, I love the helmets that Garrett sports. And right now, and we said it a couple weeks ago, Chris DePew, I think, is coach of the year. And, I don't like the NECC's tiebreaker rule. I think when you play everybody in a round robin type atmosphere and you beat everybody head to head, that should be yours. But they have to win this game against Angola. And assuming West Noble wins their contest tomorrow night, which they'll be heavy favorites against Cherubusco, they have to win this game, Jeff, to be champs. So, and I guess the good news is you can't slack off, and you really gotta ride through your entire conference schedule. So it's not a gimme. I mean, Angola, Coach Thomas is a really good coach. It's not a gimme. And with Hawk Hasselman, there was a quote there. And again, I can't read it. I meant to bring a rag in with me, but Chris DePew said something to the effect of they run every, version of, zone read known to man or something like that. I mean, typical Chris DePew quote. And it's so true that Hawk Hasselman is their guy, and they run it really well up there at Angola. And if you're not careful, he might break one or two off on you. And before you know it, you're in a dogfight.
Yeah, well, Garrett, like you said, a special season, and they're in the exact same situation that East Noble's in, where, they've won the battles that they needed to win, and now all they have to do is win out, and the conference championship outright is theirs. So couldn't ask to be in a better position if you're the Garrett Railroaders. And I 100% agree that Coach DePew, great job, probably going to run away with the coach of the year, in my opinion. And I think you could also look statewide if you were just talking about the regular season. But Coach Alex Stewart has also done a great job of coaching in his first year at East Noble. And shoot, you could argue that, what Coach Jason Garrett's doing, turning the Saints around, doing a great job this year, working with so many injured players in a shortened senior class. But yeah, Coach DePew, great job once again by him and his squad.
Yeah, there's a lot of worthy candidates for sure, but I think the first two guys you mentioned for me would be at the top of the list.
Yeah, for sure.
And I suppose at Heritage beaten Adams Central, I would have put Jeremy Hollinger in that conversation as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
And then Coach Kunkel a week ago from Bluffton, same deal. Adams Central has a way of spoiling a lot of people's plans, don't they?
Every single year. And Coach Mosier never gets mentioned as Coach of the Year.
Well, it's because he's won too much. That's part of the problem, right? Well, and then you look back, the one team that he didn't beat, Garrett. And that's why Chris DePew might be our front runner.
Right. And I think everybody wanted Coach Mosier's head after week one. What the heck just happened? You lost to Garrett.
Yes, they were calling for his job, right?
He's in a no-win situation, but they love him in the Adams Central community.
No doubt about it. And I'm so excited to see what they do in 2A as well. It'll be kind of fun. All right, we're still waiting on the snake. Let's move on. Northside at Wayne.
Here's your center spread.
Oh, yeah. Well, since we're there, why don't we just highlight a few of those pictures? Anything come to mind there? Again, I love the one to the right side of the screen, second one down of the Leo kids converging. Yeah, that one. I wish that one was bigger. That is a great picture in the rain. That's a fabulous picture. One of my favorites. I like the one of the assistant coach with Tagulis. Yes. Pointing, tapping on his chest. The sunset, the one to the left there of Adam Snyder with Woodland, great sunset in the background. A lot of great picks there. And again, some of those folks, if you're checking this out on summitcitysports.com, zoom in on them. If you get a actual paper tomorrow night of game night, same deal. You'll be able to, see them a little bit larger in print. There's just a lot of action and a lot of great images there of the high school football scene in Northeast Indiana.
Yeah, it's special that Northside now has the banner that they can break through. You didn't always see that over there at Chambers Field, but I have seen this picture a few times, and New Haven's just nailed it with coming out under the tunnel onto the field to their home sideline. That's a great picture.
Yeah, Melissa Amstutz took that, and the other one on the other side, conversely, of Norwell coming out on the field, also Melissa submitted. And yeah, those are great picks because you get a lot of kids in there. The east side picture, bottom right, the bottom left picture, the south side huddle, all those. I love all those where you get a ton of kids in there and a lot of images and a lot of great color too. The colors of fall.
Yeah, and you look at Southside, just the one win on the season, but you see them in person or see them on the field. They are a big football team. I mean, they've got guys.
No doubt about it.
They just don't have a lot of depth.
Not a lot of depth, and they're still, in many ways, learning how to play football and how to win, what it means to win.
Exactly.
But they've got some good athletes, and they are very, very young. And like Ben Johnson told me this week, hey, I'm excited about the future of this series between Northside and Southside because we both are really young and have a lot of talent, and there's just a lot of pride at both programs. So I think that bodes well for both of them.
Leads right into Northside.
Well, I'll let you take it, Jeff. I mean, you're closer to the legends than I am. You've coached some of these kids. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that win last week, and then, of course, this matchup against Wayne.
Yeah, a breakout performance by Marcus Williams. You talk about the young players at Northside. Marcus is only a sophomore, but he is a big body, listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. He averaged 6.3 yards a carry in that win against Southside. So just another one of the young guys to keep an eye out. They're still waiting for Caleb Kingley to get 100% back from the ankle injury. Winning a conference championship is kind of out of the question here for Northside. So they're wanting to make sure Caleb is at his best when he does come back. And hopefully he'll be 100% for a postseason run. A sectional that's very winnable for this Northside team. But Tristan Newsome, that was kind of the head scratcher last week. I did not think Southside was going to be able to bottle him up like they did. He was able to get yardage. He was able to move the ball down the field, but Southside really tightened up when Northside got in the red zone. And it was just the one touchdown for Northside in that game. And that was a defensive touchdown. But yeah, Leslie Woodson, you're probably not going to see him back unless they make a run in playoffs, but Brandon Jenkins. And so Savion Harris, Sosa, not the easiest name to say, but those two guys have been holding it down on the defensive line with James Early Jr., who I believe committed to the Cincinnati Bearcats
this past week. Yeah, pretty cool news for him. 6'5", defensive end, who's had a really nice 3-year run on the defensive line for the Legends, and again, a lot of talent there. But we talked earlier about offensive struggling. This is another one of those teams that if they could figure some things out offensively as well as the defense is playing, man, look out. They could be really, really dangerous come postseason.
Yeah, just 813 yards passing on the season for Newsome, and a lot of those came in chunks in some of the lower games, but 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I mean, he's had an unbelievable season, but you're right. I think more people want to see Malik Moore and Jamari Pearson really shine in that offense this season. So we'll see. It's definitely an interesting story to follow.
Yeah, and Tristan Newsome, I think, just picked up an offer to Trine.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's a kid that needs to be playing football at the next level. I'm not convinced he's a quarterback at the next level, but he's a really good athlete, and he's just a football player, as we said earlier with Jake this year. And I love his motor. I love his attitude. He's just a wonderful kid. And those are the kind of kids you want to see play at the next level if they want to play at the next level, and he certainly does.
Yeah, and you write about it here where Sosa was able to knock the ball away from KJ right there at the goal line, and Jamari Pearson picked it up for the touchdown.
Yeah, and it was funny, you on the replay, it was it a fumble? Was it an interception? The ball just kind of floated just for a second and literally landed right in Jamari's hands. And yeah, if you would have told me that neither team was going to score a touchdown, offensive touchdown a week ago, that I would have lost that bet, because I would have thought Northside, like with Tristan Newsome, would have gotten loose either with his feet or with a deep ball over top against that Southside defense. So credit Coach Goody and the Archers for a great game plan.
Agreed with that.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Wayne. I mean, my goodness, 30.5 sacks on the year for Wayne. And then, of course, Kamar. Now, I didn't see enough of that game to decipher whether or not he really had 5.5, but 12 and a half QB sacks, Jeff, on the season. I don't think anybody's catching him locally.
No, and he's got more, coming. That's for sure. He can't be stopped. I actually did watch a lot of that game. We had an issue over at Concordia, and I just wanted to see a few things, but I just found myself focused on Kemar coming off the edge. I think I counted 3 pancake blocks from the defensive end position. So he's pancaking the offensive lineman, not the other way around.
What do they call those? Are those waffles, or what? They need to come up with a name for that.
As far as I'm concerned, lineman or lineman, that's a pancake. It just goes to the defender. So, no, it's true. I mean, and I talked with Jimmy Sullivan's dad after Carroll played Wayne, and Carroll barely squeaked out. I think it was a 17-16 victory. And he looked at me and said, that Kemar Nelson is the real deal.
Yep.
And it was nice to see that. I think this past Saturday he visited Toledo. I think it was their homecoming. So it's good to see him getting some recognition out there, but somebody's going to get a real steal with Kemar Nelson. Harold Mack, we've been talking about it. His QBR is 116.7 now, ever since he took over that starting role. And gosh, when did that happen? That happened for the Southside game, I believe, the 36-0
about 3
victory.
weeks ago. Yep. And
yeah.
He's been phenomenal.
He really has, and he just knows the game. He knows the breaks. He gets the ball in the guy's hands. Another guy who's really shining for him lately is Tyree Eldridge, who's just a sophomore. Also, his brother, Javante Eldridge, only a freshman at 6'5", 214, has 2 tackles for a loss, 10 tackles on the season.
Yep.
So, once again, more and more guys are getting play. They're at Wayne. They got a big offensive line averaging 256 a man. And, Jacob Sharon has not been healthy all year. And I think he's got a breakout game coming to him. I don't know if it'll be this week, but this is the type of game that you would think it would happen in.
Yes.
Jake did have a touchdown last week at Concordia, which was really nice to see. And then one other name that I wanted to mention was Lanaz Martin.
Nas.
Yeah, the D tackle and fullback. Of course, Sherwood's going to use a guy like Nas on the offensive side too. So they list him as a tight end / fullback. But he's really been putting together a great season.
Yeah, earlier in this game night season, we had him on our game night watch list, as well as we do Adrian Wooten, who had a kick return last week for a touchdown. Nas I think he had 3 sacks last week. And again, he's kind of that prototypical Sherwood Haydock science experiment. Is he an H-back? Is he a fullback? Is he a tight end? What is he? And, Sherwood, I'm sure, probably has a term for him, but he really stands out on the defensive side of the ball. But I did speak with a former assistant coach, and he probably doesn't want me saying his name, so I won't. But in the last couple of weeks, he said Harold Mack, if he would have started at quarterback to begin the season, like with an entire preseason, he said he'd be the second best quarterback in the area. And this is somebody, this is a coach that I trust. I trust his opinion. And I just thought that was an interesting take. He was that high on his ability to throw the ball and to break down a defense and read progressives, second and third reads.
Yep.
The
He
only
always finds the open guy.
He does, and a lot of it's just him improvising and scrambling. But the only thing the only downside to him playing quarterback right now is there's no Harold Mack out wide at receiver.
Right.
But they weren't getting him the ball, and
Right.
so it was a move that needed to be made. And credit the coaches, including Coach Haydock, for making it, because they are a better team now.
Yeah, but Tyree Eldridge, Jacob Sharon, those are no slouches. 100%. I think that's kind of what the thinking was entering the season, is let's keep our dynamic playmakers. And Harold certainly is that, one of the top ranked players in the class of 2025 via 247 Sports. But honestly, you really just flip it, because Trey Dillard at tight end is dangerous, and he's shown that he's got great hands. The 50-50 jump ball is all his. He's got the body to kind of shield defenders. He works the sidelines well.
And deceptive speed.
Yes,
he's faster than he looks. He's a big kid, and he moves pretty well.
Well, yeah, because when you're 6'5", 6'6", you got those long strides. Yes. Exactly. He's another guy. I could see him getting college looks for tight end.
No doubt about it. If the basketball thing doesn't work out, I totally agree with you, especially with this move senior year. That's the kind of kid that you can project, because he hasn't played football in these last few years. And I think the right college could look at him and say, yeah, with a little work and some time in the weight room and some film study time, we can make him a pretty darn good tight end. I agree with you.
Yeah, and he was like automatic with the 2-point conversions in that Carroll game. I mean, that is really what kept Wayne in that one, was getting those two-point conversions.
Yep.
And then, just the field goal by the Chargers to edge out the victory. But it was a great game, and that's why I think Wayne is dangerous in that sectional. As far as I'm concerned, it's East Noble and Wayne is really, really close to them, and Dwenger is really, really close to Wayne.
And Leo.
And then there's everybody. I got Leo and Columbia City just a notch down, but yeah, it's going to be a good sectional.
Yeah, I if I had to rank them right now, I might go with Wayne. East Noble close second, Leo close third, Dwenger maybe tied with Leo for third, and Columbia City, we'll find out maybe a little bit more tomorrow night against Leo. Right, they really need to bounce back after last week. Well, let's talk about the next game here and see if Jake surfaces. I haven't heard from him. I'm going to send him a quick text and see what he says.
I'll start with this one because I did get a chance to talk with Drew Fleek, and Drew's actually going to be going to Purdue next year, studying sales and I want to say biology or something, but Carter Fleek, they've moved into the second level. So his cousin now is playing linebacker. Yeah. Yep. And I really like that, because tough game against South Adams this week. Woodland has to win this game if they want to have a 500 season. And I think the way last season ended and this season came about, if Coach Rohrbacher had a 500 record in his first season, I mean, you can almost put him up for Coach of the Year, because that's a great job done by Coach Rohrbacher. But they're going to have to pin their ears back and get after Titus Lehman.
Yep, and that is Carter Fleek there, number 2, with the picture, the cutout there. I'm a big fan of the cutouts. Adam Snyder submitted that picture, and I was like, yeah, we got to get that in. It's a great pick. And yes, moving him to outside linebacker. He had an interception last week, did Carter Fleek, and I think it makes them so much better against the pass, especially in the flat. And that's where a lot of these ACAC type schools want to make their money, those little quick outs and trying to use the boundary. He takes that away from one half of the field. And he's an exceptional athlete. And he's a 4-year varsity player like his first cousin Drew. And both the Fleek boys have made a lot of noise this year, and they keep getting better and better and better. And this is a great matchup down in Bern. Coach Mosier does a fantastic job with the Starfires. And I don't know if you want to pan down, and we'll take a peek at the South Adams side of this page.
Jeez Louise.
The muscles on that beast, Ethan Schwartz. I mean, I swear that kid was out in one of their cars just hammering some iron, just pumping. And doing some curls and stuff, and he came in, and I was like, man, I saw that picture. I'm like, yeah, that's got to get in this week.
Boy, that reminds you of the stud they had 2 years ago. His name's escaping me right now.
Somerset?
Yes.
Maverick Somerset? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, some of those kids are really well put together. Ethan Schwartz is certainly one of them, having a nice season for sure. There's Odell and Ramirez. I mean, they've got quite a few. Neuenschwander at receiver. Of course, Titus Lehman, the junior quarterback's having a nice season. So they've got plenty of parts to the South Adams Starfires. They don't have maybe the firepower that they've had in recent seasons across the board, and they're not as big as they'd like to be in the trenches, but they're tough. They're tough kids, and they play with a lot of pride. And I think this is maybe the best matchup on the docket this week, Jeff.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I feel like Northside and Wayne could be a good one too. I really feel like Columbia City and Leo is going to be an outstanding game, in that both of those teams are very similar to where they are at this point in the season. But you feel like with South Adams, this is a game where Ramirez gets it going, as you got a picture right here in the run game. Coming into the game Friday's averaging 47.4 yards a game. So Woodland's going to want them to run the ball. And so what that means with their defensive backfield, I mean, Woodland is really, really young, but I just wonder if Ramirez doesn't get going this game.
Well, and I don't know if you knew this or not, Jeff, but he was a lineman. His jersey number was in the 50s at the photo shoot.
That's awesome.
And so he's been converted to the backfield, I think, obviously out of necessity, and he's their leading rusher right now. And so his numbers are a little quiet, going into week 8, but to be fair to the kid, he was probably in a 3-point stance, just 4 weeks ago. And they said, okay, well, you're a running back now. And that's how you have to do it sometimes at some of these smaller schools. And they move people around, and he's done a fantastic job. And this could be the kind of game, but that Woodland defense is so tough, especially against the run. And, the Spithe kid at linebacker is a really good hard-nosed kid. And, of course, we mentioned both the Fleet kids, and they've got a couple really good down linemen as well. So it's a tough matchup for sure. But South Adams has that versatility to throw the ball with Titus Lehman. They like to roll him out. He's dangerous with his legs as well. So to me, this is a coin flip game. It's going to be a fantastic matchup.
Yeah, and when you're Woodland, your top 3 tacklers are 2 sophomores and a freshman. Funk is the freshman, and Jackway's number 3 in tackles with 49, 5 tackles for loss. Jackway is actually the cousin to the Fleeks.
Yeah, some good genes there for sure. And the Funk kid, is it Eli? Is that his first name?
Yeah, and he's a baller.
He's a good football player. So, yeah, Coach Rohrabacher's done a really good job. A little slow out of the gate. I think, he was probably having to go back through his old coaching plans and do things a little bit differently. And it took him, I think, probably a little while to get in midseason form because he hadn't done it for so long. But I give him a lot of credit, and I think as we look back now, it was a great hire.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to talk with Coach Rohrabacher a couple of times. He seems like he's happier now than he's been in a long time.
Yeah, I think he's in his
field.
I agree. I think he's in his element, and he feels, like you said, right where he belongs. Okay, let's take maybe a quick peek at some of these senior spotlights. Will Gerber, that's Coach's son, Josh Gerber, the Norwell coach, and we didn't get to do a lot with Norwell this year just because of the matchups that presented themselves from week to week. So I was really happy to be able to single Will out. Great kid. He had some fun answers there on his senior spotlight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Norwell, it's a slow rebuilding process there after graduating that great class of a few years ago, a team that shared the NE8 title. But you know what? They're fighting.
They're fighting, and they won't be down for long because they've got a good coaching staff and they've got a good culture down there. And Coach Gerber isn't going anywhere. I mean, he's going to be there a long, long time, and I think they'll be much, much better here in the years ahead.
Yeah, the community's definitely better off for it.
Yeah, Brian Rogers, probably the best offensive lineman for Wayne. That was kind of nice to make sure we got a picture of him in this year. Mason Vogelweed is, a tackle, a St. Charles kid, has had a nice season. And then Christian Rodriguez, kickers, man. Again, Jake, where are you at? You're missing. There's a kicker out there. And I don't think he gets a ton of reps with Mong Tung, everybody Mong Tung tonight. But Christian Rodriguez is just a great kid, a great personality, and one of those program kids that Coach Kurt Tittman loves to have.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always fun to see all the kickers interacting. They have so much time together, throughout the course of a practice. They always come up with little games they can play, who can make field goals from the sideline, things of that nature. And I know it's no different with Rodriguez and Mong Tung, because I'll tell you what, Snyder, if you look at maybe the past 30 years, I feel like in this area, the best kickers come out of Snyder.
Well, yeah, and you could go back probably even further than that. The Special kid that kicked, where did he kick at? Purdue?
Vito Especial.
Yeah, that's going back probably closer to 40 years. But yeah, to your point, they've
Von
done
Dunbar days.
Yes, Von Dunbar days, and then of course, who's the fellow that kicked in the Ivy League? John. Oh gosh, losing my mind. About 20 years ago, 15 years ago, who was that? I'm talking about?
No.
Rokel. John Rokel.
Rokel.
Yeah, to your point, they've had a ton. And they've got another good one this year for sure. And Christian, if needed, is right there, ready to go as well. And I'm sure he's got a heck of a leg too.
Looks like they could throw him in at D-line too if they needed to.
Well, he doesn't have quite the veins and the muscles that Ethan Schwartz had from South Adams, but they're not too shabby.
Yeah,
it does look like he could probably get in the trenches and mix it up a little bit, doesn't he? I like that for my kickers.
Not many people are built like Schwartz. I thought I was looking in the mirror for a second.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. All right, let's get you want to jump up and just tackle Leo at Columbia City so we don't forget about it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Jake, he must have gotten pulled over up there in the Whitley. And he's getting a ticket right now. But again, we've kind of talked about this game a little bit already, Jeff. I'll go ahead and start and then turn it over to you. To me, this feels like the kind of game. It's clearly for second place because I do not see East Noble losing these last 2 weeks to New Haven or to Norwell, Belmont, right? I think that's who East Noble has, is New Haven and Belmont. But that being said, it's still about pride. It's still about position. It's still about making a statement, I think, for the 4A sectional, which we alluded to earlier. And both these teams are very, very capable. Now, does this game mean more to Columbia City because of what happened a week ago? I believe it does. That being said, Leo has 2 losses with all the hype coming into the season and the 2 big-time Division I players in Landon Hepner and Brock Schott. If they would lose this game, do they have all of a sudden some doubts about who they are? So I think from that standpoint, this is a really, really important game for both squads.
Yeah, interesting game. Leo lost coming 35-29 at home against East Noble. So the one blemish, both teams with 6-1 records. And Casey, honestly, you felt like that game was not as close as 35-29. Leo getting a late touchdown, and great job getting the victory 34-20 against Huntington North in that game. And Nathan Foster has just been the steady constant for them all year long. But Leo literally is feeling like a one-dimensional team now. You hate to see the 2 interceptions in that game against Huntington North. I know Huntington North is one of the better teams in the NE8. Casey, I think it's safe to say that they got that number 4 spot all to themselves in the NE8, especially looking at that matchup they had with DeKalb. But boy, you love to see Brock Schott with the 5 receptions and the 93 yards. But man, as Columbia City's defense is solid, and they're going to make it hard on Foster to run the ball. And they've got a ton of different weapons and a ton of different things that they can do there at Leo. I think as long as they don't turn the ball over, I feel like it's hard to say that they're the better team, but I feel like if they don't turn the ball over with their studs, Hepner and Schott and Foster, that they're going to go in there and get the victory. Now, that being said, Columbia City learned a lot about themselves this past Friday. And one of the moves that they made in that game was putting Fazio back at the fullback position, therefore getting Smith and Fuller on the wing and really trying to put out their most speedy offense that they can in that situation. So will they build on that? How many times will Bradbury throw it through the air? You know, he had open receivers. He had Fazio wide open down the middle, just overthrew him. Had Gavin Smith wide open behind 3 defenders on the sideline and couldn't connect. And that's kind of where I go back to the, well, you only had one pass the week before against New Haven. And you're right, Casey.
Reps.
You don't want to run up the score on anybody, but also it's not your responsibility. It's the opposing team's responsibility to keep you out of the end zone. So if you got to, work on passing in that game, then that's just what you got to do. I feel like that was maybe an opportunity missed in preparation for that East Noble game.
Yeah, you might be onto something there. Was that the bad weather day or night? I'm trying to remember. 2 weeks ago it wasn't it? So that might have played into it as well.
Yeah,
but I was out at Dwenger and Northrop, and both those teams were throwing it around a ton.
Yeah.
And in that monsoon, so maybe there's a thought process there, like, hey, we could see more rain, more cold, more wind in November, and if we want to still be playing, we might have to throw it in this stuff. So let's throw it. So they both threw it a lot in that game, relatively speaking. But yeah, to your point, it's a catch-22. I'm sure Coach Fox could go back. He probably would have gotten Grayson Bradbury, his senior QB, a few more tosses in that contest against New Haven. But they have to be a little more creative offensively. They have to be able to throw the ball a little bit more to keep people honest, to make that rushing attack all the more effective. Because if people take away and they read their keys and they take away those 2 or 3 running options and they get behind the chains and they don't do what they want to do, they're a different team, no doubt about it. When things are going well, they're almost unbeatable.
They grind you.
That offense is just like a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
But if they get behind the chains, it can be a bit of a nightmare. So I fully expect the Eagles to throw more in this contest tomorrow night at home. The weather should be, really nice. And I think Stratton Fuller is just far too good of an athlete, 4-year starter. His numbers have been pretty quiet this year. I think they're going to really try to find a way these last 2 weeks to get him more touches, not just in the aerial game, but maybe in some sweeps, some, different, scissors plays that they have, and, different things like that, maybe a reverse or two. Maybe Wildcat. You got to get him more touches. Yes. He's too good not to get more carries. And more touches.
And to that point too, Casey, when they have him and Smith returning kickoffs all the way back there, every single time they're trying to reverse it to Stratton. So I was thinking maybe what they could do is just line the guys on top of each other so you don't know if they're on the left side or the right side. And then obviously Stratton would have to be chasing down the football.
Yeah, split as soon as the kicker starts coming. Yeah, just so they can't size you up. There's a fun picture of Cash. I think it's Ewer. Lefty center. He's a real funny, gregarious kid. And then there's the Five Lakes logo for Jake. He had, so maybe he can extract some caffeine through the screen, because he loves his milligrams of caffeine. So, all right, well, let's get out of there and we jump down to. Speaking of Snake, the Snake Eyes feature. I wish Jake was here to talk about this one. I'll take it, Jeff, real quick. Max Carr, I think he put in there his squat is 550 pounds.
Jeez,
that's insane. I mean, that hammer there was probably 500 pounds alone. I remember I picked that thing up and I about threw my back out. And the Jets brought that. It was a fun pick. And again, he's one of those kids that wanted to wear his helmet for some of the picks. But this is a kid that wants to play football at the next level. I think he's a small college, strong safety or outside linebacker, but he's got a nose for the ball. He led the team in tackles a year ago. And you think about guys like Keegan Bloom and some of those studs and Trevor Curry on that team. He was actually the tackling leader. And he's had a heck of a career there. and you want to see him get an opportunity to play at the next level. And then Carmine Moreno. We haven't had a whole lot of Fremont in game night, and so that was cool. He rushed for over 400 yards earlier this year.
Jeez.
It's insane. And then Mikhail Bottles, we've talked a little bit about him. He's starting to see his recruiting heat up. And again, those are both 2026 kids. And if it's going to happen, generally speaking, you want to see it happen this junior year. So hopefully there's some colleges out there locally and they need to fill some some needs. There's 3 good guys right there to take a hard look at. And then standings, I don't think any huge surprises. Kind of, I think Carroll right now to me looks like the best team in the area, and they should, knock on wood, wrap up the SAC here in the next week or two. And then Northeast 8, we already talked about East Noble pretty much securing that. ACAC, barring a Bluffton upset, I think AC is going to be champs again there. And then the NECC, congratulations, Cherubusco. The Eagles secured a championship there. I'm sure you've probably seen some Terrapin Eagle memorabilia there in Busco Town. Happy for Coach Sade because it's, they have not had maybe the success that they're accustomed to up there these last couple of years, but kudos to them for getting a conference championship. And then the big division, of course, Garrett should take care of business, assuming they beat Angola tomorrow night.
Nope, I totally agree, and it's been a fun season to watch. I cannot believe we're in week 8 already.
Yeah, it goes so fast. And then the leaders board. I don't know if there's anything there that you want to touch on. There's still some work to do. Some races that are, I think, not over yet. I mean, Seth Pruitt, no one's catching him on TDs, that's for sure. No one's catching Kamar Nelson on sacks, I don't believe. Interceptions, we got a 2-man race there between Gavin Smith and Kean Arroyo. So that's pretty cool. But again, you know how sometimes these guys get those in bunches. Somebody could get 2 or 3 in a game and vault to the top of that list. But and then the receiving list is still open. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, if we're looking at just 10 games, right? Because everybody's assured a 10th game except for Wayne this year. But everybody's going to play 1 game in the postseason. If you had to say, Jeff, right now, who's going to win these let's say 3 categories. Let's do offense only. Do you think the 3 leaders now are the ones here in a few weeks after 10 weeks, again, knowing that there's some bye weeks in play?
Yeah, it sure does feel like it just because they've been there all season long. But you look at, Quay, he had a big game last week against Snyder, getting his total nearly to 500 yards. Callison now at the number 2 spot. Jimmy Sullivan climbing up the ranks after his big game. For a while there, he was at the bottom, and you're so used to seeing him at the top. Yeah,
Jimmy would be my one that I could totally see his numbers spiking here towards the end based on schedule and who they're playing. The receiving, I think, is probably the most wide open. It wouldn't be surprised at all if Quay or Jamari Brown from Northrop or even Braden Walter from Heritage took that over. But again, Kean Arroyo and Derek McKean from Lakeland and South Adams respectively have been at the top of that list, at least for the last 4 weeks, I believe. So some great races. I think the one probably safest bet would be Seth Pruitt. But that being said, you just don't know about health and things like that. Will they rest him and save him up at all for the postseason? Because they're in a very, very winnable sectional against a lot of familiar foes. So I think some of those things will come into play too, in addition to weather, matchups, things like that. But through 10 weeks, yeah, my money would be, I don't even want to put any money on any of these because they're all still wide open.
Yeah, and, expect Lakeland to put up some big numbers in the last 2 weeks at Fairfield and hosting Jimtown.
Yeah, for sure. Braden Holbrook is a heck of a young quarterback, and, Coach O'Shea is going to get them some momentum going into the postseason. Okay. Well, let's jump right into the picks. Why don't you're going to have to read them. That's way too small for these old eyeballs of mine, Jeff. Why don't you why don't we just do the featured matchups, and I'll let you just kind of take the ball, and you and I can just kind of discuss each game briefly.
Yeah, Leo at Columbia City. Swami says Leo by 11. And I'm just going to go back to what you were saying. Columbia City, a nasty taste in their mouth, entering last week's game 6-0, now 6-1. I believe that that'll be a little closer. I'm going to go Leo by 7.
Okay. So pretty close to 11 points. Swami's thinking somewhere in the
11.
31 to 21 or 31-20, something like that is what Swami was thinking. So I think we're all in agreement there. Next one.
Bishop Dwenger at Snyder. Swami says Snyder by 10. I think that's about right.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's low scoring. I just don't have a ton of faith in either offense right now, and I have a ton of faith in both defenses. They're both really, really well on that side of the ball. Special teams are both really solid. I'm thinking like I don't know, a 20-10 game, something like that, 24-14, maybe 17-7.
There'll be some big plays in that one.
Yeah, you would think. They usually both pull out a couple treats. And Andrew Train, the left tackle for Dwenger, is coming back. I get confirmation there, and so that'll help bolster that offensive line for the Saints.
Bluffton at Adams Central. Adams Central by 24.
Yeah. Again, Bluffton's a really, really young team. I think if they score early and hang around, it'll probably end up being 3 or 4 scores, 21-24. I think if AC jumps out to a 21-0 first quarter lead, they'll run away with it, and they'll more than cover 24.
Yeah, that number is right about perfect too. It's about the number they had in that South Adams game that was in the sloppy weather. Angola at Garrett by 22.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 35-13, something like that. Angola, again, it's a bigger school. It's that in that conference anyways. And Hawk Hasselman is such a dynamic player that I think he keeps them around for a while. But Garrett's just on a mission. And Coach DePuy, I don't think, lets those kids falter in this game knowing what's on the line.
Nope, they're undefeated. They're smelling conference, man. That's a huge goal to accomplish, winning conference after the last couple of seasons at Garrett. Well, Northside at Wayne by 12 points.
What do you think of that one?
Boy,
does that sound about right?
It does feel like that. The way, not scoring an offensive touchdown against Southside leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And Wayne, what they're doing with Mac at quarterback, you feel like you haven't seen the best of them yet. Somebody had told me that they counted like 83 different formations this year from Wayne.
I believe it. I totally believe it. When Coach Haydock gets his beakers out, there is no stopping him. But, I'm thinking this is like a 32-20 type game. I do think Northside gets some big plays. Maybe 28-16, somewhere in there.
And then Woodland at South Adams. Woodland by 2 points. This is going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Jeff, I just think this is maybe the best matchup. Pure matchup in terms of competitiveness. You got Woodland that wants to run the ball. You got South Adams that can run it, but they really want to throw it. Both teams, it feels like it's the kind of game that whoever wins it will really springboard into something special, maybe into the postseason. I think the Fleeks and the Woodburn guys just find a way. I'm thinking like a 24-22 type game, 27-25, something like that.
Two contrasting styles. It's going to be a good one.
Yep, for sure. And then on the big tag of the week, LaserX, one of our sponsors. So I just want to shout out there. There's a really cool picture from Doug Blackwell of Jaron Taylor, just totally engulfing the Bishop Dwenger ball carrier. I love that picture.
He is huge.
Yeah, he's a beast. And I think that ball carrier for Dwenger, I believe, is Gus Tittman, who's diminutive. So is a little bit misleading, but he looks like he just swallowed him up and ate him. And they had some big dudes on the trenches for lures for sure. That was a fun battle of the Bishops. And
a great photo right there, Casey.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hopefully Jake's okay. Jeff, it was fun. It's kind of an old school. I feel like I had a flashback to 2020 when we started this whole thing. So thank you for your time tonight, and certainly thank you to all our viewers at home or wherever for watching. And I suppose until next week, get out and watch some football and we'll see you then.
Take care, Casey.
Yep. See you, Jeff.
Why choose Kelly Chevrolet? We offer a wide selection of new and used inventory with a team that guides you to your perfect fit. Our certified pre-owned options ensure peace of mind with warranties and rigorous inspections. Competitive pricing, flexible financing, and convenient trade-in services, making your dream Chevrolet a reality. Trust our experienced service team to keep your vehicle in top shape and enjoy free car washes as long as you own your vehicle.